Oh, so you're going to be driving the Cybertruck during winter. That's the plan.
Of course.
You got 14.2 on the Cybertruck?
Yeah.
How is it?
Yeah, both my cars.
Of course. Excuse me, royalty.
Not really. Lucky.
How is it going on both?
Good. It is driving very well. There's just some weird. They still got to work through parking lots and some mapping issues. I think they just like those are the things like the final thing that they've got to figure out. Obviously, and maybe reasoning is part of that with 14.3, but if there's an issue, it's still getting out of parking lots, and then there's some mapping issues in terms of going the right direction. But again, those are limited. Everything else is dramatically improved.
What do you guys think is the last piece of the puzzle? Elon said 14.3, last piece of the puzzle.
Well, parking lots, is one thing.
And I don't know whether you read Joe Techmeyer's post.
Mm-hmm.
There seem to be some mismatches of mapping issues that are less of Tesla's issue, but obviously have to be dealt with. Here in California, I took it twice this morning. It was just perfect. There was construction in our street, which was really confusing. Dealt perfectly with it. Very safe, very assertive. And then my first appointment, my chiropractor, is up in the mountains, a very windy road. I've taken FSD on that. It's not really that far, but it's going ups and downs, it's shady and little curves, and really not very pleasant. And as soon as you have somebody walking there, and there are lots of people walking their dogs up there, you have half the road is blocked. And so usually, I did use it version 13, but I felt very uneasy when I let it go completely by itself, and then I was always on the supervisory side. And often intervened. This morning, smooth, slow when it had to slow down, prudent when it had to be prudent, but very assertive for the rest. Not a second where I had the feeling I should take over. Felt completely safe, probably safer than what I could have done. So that was a huge improvement. And the first one where I really feel it was a step change. And then the way back was perfect as well. And my second drive with it were typical drives that I do all the time. It was absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Not one hesitation. But it's still going nose first into my driveway, which is not what I want. I wanted to go backing into it. Doesn't do that. So that's, little things, but nothing major.
So what's the chances that this last piece of the puzzle, I saw this guy pitch it, saying that the last piece of the puzzle could actually be this ability for you to give it directions like Grok. You'd say, actually, can you please continue driving the driveway, go, back into my garage, or any, don't park here, park further down the street. What's the chances that is
integrating Grok in the short term?
It's integrated, right? But you can just ask it questions. But this idea that, integrating it to be able to direct it, because we know that the system is built such that you could actually interact with it. That is what they're doing at this point. So I'm wondering if that is the last piece of the puzzle.
I honestly don't think that's close in time. I wish, but I honestly don't think an interaction between the car and Grok is close in time.
It is, though, the thing that makes the most sense, because everything else like banish and, finding parking spots and being able to do these, we solved the leaf issue. That was solved, but then up comes other problems. Those are little nines that need to be addressed. That doesn't seem to be the last piece of the puzzle. I
don't think that, we need that to get to unsupervised. I don't think that at all. And if you discuss with Grok, not that my love-hate relationship with Grok, when you discuss with Grok in the car whether it will ever have access to the commands of the car, they obviously configured it so that it says, no, that's not the goal. I'm here to entertain you. I'm here to answer your questions, whatever. So I don't know, how far that is, but I don't see at all how important that would be to get to fully
Unsupervised.
unsupervised.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, actually. Unsupervised FSD is probably the main goal right now. And so you guys saw that there was code in Green Only found some code in software, Tesla software, saying that there's these Bay Area, these geo-fenced areas that it's actually called unsupervised FSD, California DMV. So it sounds like they're either testing it or they're trying to get approval. That seems incredibly promising that they're actually probably already testing or getting approval from DMV that for certain situations they can call it unsupervised. You can, text while you're driving. Yeah,
I think Tesla. I think the key thing is what is Tesla seeing? What is the engineering team and Elon seeing? And it's my guess that they've seen 14.2 like performance in September. I even think Elon referenced the release, early on a couple months ago, and so obviously they clearly have information about where this is going and how they see this working out. And I'm wondering what they're seeing now for the next couple of months. And that, to me, I think that, and then all the requisition postings are all kind of tied in together. And that relationship to me is very interesting. So is Tesla, they're obviously cooking 14.3, and they have something that's in some level of quality performance, some bug status with that release. And I'm wondering if what they see beyond that. I do think that Grok integration needs to be on the roadmap. I think they just have to be very careful about what they allow Grok to do, because I can imagine being in a robotaxi and just saying, "Hey, look, can you slow down? I'm just coming out of the hospital or something. I don't want to be, driven like, a crazy person." Or can you speed up? I'm late for a meeting, but don't break any laws or whatever. Things like that. I could see that. I could see or just commenting on the destination and saying, there's two entrances, pulling, let's not this one, let's go to the next one, that kind of stuff. I could see that happening. But for 14.3, I just think it's going to be about reasoning and knowing the business address or location and understanding the difference between a handicap spot and a non-handicap spot, and just finding you the closest parking spot. I think those are some of the things that be able to do. So that to me is the big thing. And then just all the requisitions being posted all over the world. I mean, this is pure information, pure alpha. And you have to understand the company. This is not a company that just spends, whatever they want. This is a company that watches every penny from a below gross margin spending, before production launch. So I think the requisitions are huge amounts of information. I think some of Elon's posts are huge information about the timeline of FSD. And I think if you put those two together, you kind of see what they're thinking and how confident they are in this. And there's just information here, I think, that's not being fully responded to yet by the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That would be very cool if you can actually interact with the car through Grok. But yeah, I think all three of us are not expecting it to be the last piece of the puzzle. Welcome, Omar. We were just asking the question: what did Elon? What do you think Elon meant when he said 14.3 is going to be the last piece of the puzzle, and that unsupervised FSD looks like it's coming through the code that was discovered?
Yeah, 14.2 is rolling out now. It's pretty amazing in my experience. It's 14, all the intelligence of 14, but really up to the smoothness level of 13. And pretty much everybody, I think, will probably get that this week. It's already, I think, the major version. But despite how well it's performing, including on Cybertruck, there's a really exciting roadmap up ahead. There are several major improvements, foundational improvements that are going to make FSD a lot smarter. One of the top ones that I'm looking forward to that Ashok kind of outlined in his recent tech talk is the reasoning. So you've probably seen kind of like the thinking modes on LLMs. Imagine that happening locally on the car. That's what FSD reasoning is. And it should be able to pick much better parking spots and handle certain things like complex signs much better than we've seen before. That's kind of the thing where they asked the car why it made the decision and it was actually able to explain it. So that's a pretty important foundational improvement that's going to make the car a lot smarter. Another thing is the 10x model scaling. And, there's still a few pieces like Banish, for example, that maybe he was referring to. But I think architecturally, the larger model and the reasoning are going to be the most important foundational improvements. And right now they're doing, I think at least several thousand miles per intervention. With the reasoning, I think it's just going to be performing probably better than we can imagine right now.
What's your thinking of how likely is unsupervised FSD coming, given that we saw the code showing that there's geographies already potentially that they're asking or trying to get approval from DMV for that?
Yeah, we have seen Tesla apply in several states, including Arizona and Nevada.
No, unsupervised FSD.
Yeah, I mean, they've been applying for, unsupervised FSD in other states. So going through the permitting process in each of those respective states. And I expect that we're going to see them do the same in California. It was interesting that geofence in the code referenced the California DMV. So I would imagine we're probably going to start seeing permits pretty soon for the next stages getting into, fully autonomous rideshare in California. I think they'll probably launch in Austin first and then follow up in California and other markets as soon as permits permit them to do that.
Okay. And then are you guys feeling pretty good about 14.2? There seemed to be a little bit of a regression on the navigation, but I think there's a Mike P who had a really good post. I thought that he was saying, look, the car is very safe now. That's priority one. And all these things that are still there are tiny. But Elon did say that this upgrade to 14.2 was a very big jump. Like, it wasn't a minor update. And then 14.3 is also going to be another major jump. So you're thinking it's going to be the 10x in parameters, much better reasoning, and we'll see that. And then are you guys thinking 14.3 is the one that they will start testing out unsupervised FSD? Or is it going to be a further a release later?
I think we could probably see them start to remove the safety monitors with 14.2 or 14.2 something. I think we're probably going to see, 14.2.1 and 14.2.2 to fix maybe some of the issues people are seeing, but it looks to be a pretty stable release. 14.3 and 14.4 will obviously be better, but at this point, I think the safety is there. It can react very fast. It can see everything a human can see and more, often spotting things earlier than the human can. I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this. So as soon as they validate it, see if you can go a month or so without any interventions from the human safety monitor. And if you can do that, then, well, there's no reason for them to be in the car.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 14.2, you think it'll be able to take care of that? Okay, and then did you guys see Hardware 3 FSD might actually be incoming? I mean, there was a job posting that said, we need to take these large models and make them smaller models. But also, a friend of mine spoke to Ashok when he at the shareholder meeting, and Ashok told him that Hardware 3 that will be capable of robotaxi. And I thought that was the best statement I've ever heard. Coming from directly from them, saying that no, not only is Hardware 3 going to get FSD, it's going to be the kind of FSD that you can actually use for robotaxi. And then I don't know. It just started to. There was something else I'm forgetting that happened that made it possibly that a Hardware 3 FSD could come sooner than I thought. I've been saying previously that I don't expect it until second half of next year. But now it's like it might come sooner. You guys expect that might be the case?
Well, it's 4 million cars. They're gonna work on it. There's a consumer issue, and Tesla likes driving high consumer satisfaction, high net promoter score, and it's clear. And there's an economics issue. There's 4 million cars, roughly, that have Hardware 3 by all estimates. So yeah, they need to do this anyway. They need to hire people to continue to refine and improve model size and efficiency anyway, because they're going to need it for Optimus. They're going to need it for anything that they're doing. So this is a continual. They're going to want somebody to improve hard models on Hardware 4 too.
That's right, yeah.
So anyway, I think James Dalma posted
That's
about
right.
this too. So the business they can't avoid. I mean, the 4 million cars. So yeah, it's going to happen.
But before next year, or not, we don't have to.
I don't know. I can't speak to their engineering timelines. I just can't imagine that they wouldn't be focused on it. And it's nice to see their requisitions. Not that they weren't focused on it without their requisitions, but it's probably like, hey, we probably need more. We probably need to put more behind this to A, accelerate it, or B, we've got other stuff going on too that we're ramping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you should push for hoping for an earlier date, Herbert.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a small problem. And whenever, because I've accumulated all the snippets we had in earnings calls from both Vaibhav and Elon, whenever this subject came up, it was like, it will be done once we feel FSD is solved. It's next on the list, and then when it's done, it will. It's not an easy thing. It's not hiring one person and the solution will be the next day. So I feel for the FSD Hardware 3 people, but it's going to take some time. It's great that they're tackling it now. That's probably a little bit earlier than we'd hoped for, but I don't think that means it will come out very soon.
I think the big news, of course, is Elon and his post saying that he offered to license FSD, Tesla FSD, to automakers, but every time the legacy auto, whenever they reached out, they said they wanted some tiny pilot program 5 years out with requirements that made no sense. And Elon said that's crazy and it's pointless. And so now we know that even as of today, that there hasn't been a licensing FSD, and it sounds like that there hasn't even been, or there's not one real automaker that's in deep conversation at this point. Remember, like about a year ago, during an earnings call, he said, yeah, we're in deep discussions with 2 automakers. Then it became, they don't want it. And now it's like, yeah, I warned them and we offered to them. They don't want it.
Me home. Oops, sorry.
What, Jeff?
I'm talking my car. All of these points were alluded to either on earnings calls or in public conversations by Elon. He didn't want a low volume program from any of these automakers. And what have the automakers done? And nothing but is just there's 2 things happening. U.S. and Western European automakers, besides Tesla, are pulling back on EV. They're pulling back capacity. They're reducing the number of programs. They're pushing projects out. And then in China, they're doing another really bad thing, which is just too many models. And so if you have too many models, the return on that work and the volume per model is going to be very low. This is the thing I've talked about a lot. That matters for partnerships. It matters for suppliers. And between those 2 factors, if you're Tesla, you have 8 million of your cars out there, and no one's coming to you with a 1 million unit a year program to partner with on FSD, because there's nobody making an EV at 1 million units per year. And if nobody's doing that, and you have two projects together that are basically 2 million units a year with 3 and Y, like why wouldn't you just focus all your efforts on that? So I think that's what's happening. And I mean, the other thing, I mean, to be very clear, like, I mean, we're biased in the fact that, you know, we're using FSD along the way. It's getting better. It's getting better. We're very pleased by it. But, you know, some of these automakers, they're looking for something that, okay, if I do this partnership, when am I going to be in production? How quickly could I be in production with it? And, you know, they either didn't believe that, you know, they were going to converge on this, or they didn't want to see this part of, you know, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But yeah, I think when the economic reality of this hits, and we start seeing it positively impact Tesla sales, and we also start seeing the robo-taxi model, the rental models, all these things coming together, I think it's going to force a whole different set of decisions. But I also think that they actually don't have something that Tesla wants. Back to my original 2 points. Western European and U.S. automakers are pulling back, and China just has too many models. So there's just very low return unless somebody comes to them with, hey, we're somebody like Xiaomi, right? Somebody, or even their volumes aren't that high, but somebody's got to make a high volume EV program, and maybe it would be interesting to Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Just to jump in here as well, I think we have to remember who else is also pitching the legacy automakers, or at least what other solutions are on the table. And namely, I think, you know, NVIDIA, you know, does have a product that they're putting out there. And as we know, you know, Jensen can sell water to a well. So, you know, I think all that essentially, you know, result in delays of you know, getting their models to be autonomous, which is about to become very detrimental. I think when the auto execs and their quote unquote AI teams travel to Austin and California to try Unsupervised shortly, they are going to report back to the CEO some pretty bad news. I don't think this is something that they will have a choice with, and I hope, you know, the likes of at least, you know, one or perhaps 2 U.S. automakers can quickly come to their senses and consider their survival into the next couple decades.
I don't think so, Yoda. I think it's a done deal. No one's coming to the table anymore. I think what Jeff said is where I'm at too. Let's say so first of all, they haven't. And then let's say they go, okay, they've done it. We're in trouble. How long will it take us to do this? But their business model is crumbling because they will start seeing lower sales. They're already starting to see low sales of EVs. They're going to have to restart an EV program and then lose money again. Like they just will continue to not have the right. They won't be upside.
I want to add 2 things, Herbert. First of all, I do like Elon's communication on this point, because at one point, not so distant future, there will be the voices go, this is monopolistic.
We can't hear you. Okay, there.
You cannot hear. Can you hear me?
You're
okay,
back,
sorry about my mic. That this is monopolistic, and then there will be all this proof of Elon having said in multiple shareholder meetings, in multiple earnings calls, in many tweets, what's his position, that he's looking for these partnerships, that they can come and whatever. So he has a very good defense on this point, and I think the more he talks about it, better it is. And then to the second point, I want to refer people back to an excellent interview you did, Herbert, with one of the people that come from the OEMs, and that explained clearly that adopting Tesla's FSD is suicidal for these companies. It just reduces them to a box maker rather than to a car maker. And their choice is that they're doomed if they do, and they're doomed if they do not. So I guess the choice they made is let's survive as long as we can, and let's hope the consumer doesn't jump on this train as quickly as we fear.
Yeah, that was Adrian Balfour. He's a consultant for his own consulting firm, Vorso, and he consults to many legacy automakers specifically on their software programs for autonomy. And he said that they will not partner with Tesla's FSD because that will make their cars bricks. He called them that they see that as making themselves bricks, and they just won't do it. And so they're trying to figure out ways to solve the issue that Jim Farley said about his situation in Ford with 200 vendors. They're still just trying to get that into unified system, and then from there maybe license somebody's technology, but they want to have control of it. And then just, you saw the conversation between Elon and other and I can't remember which AI engineer saying that many of these legacy auto can't even do software as an update. They can't even do over the air updates yet after all these years. Can't even do that simple thing. And you need that, just that, if you're going to get sub updates from FSD to your cars.
The other thing I would say is don't underestimate the ability for a company to just blow themselves up. I mean, I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen right in front of my eyes in mobile phone for decades, and where just companies make very bad strategic decisions and blow themselves up permanently, and tens and tens of thousands of jobs are impacted, plants are closing, and just don't underestimate that. There are bad decisions that are made many times, and this is probably going to end up being one of them.
Omar, do you have a comment on Tesla licensing FSD to automakers?
Yeah, so on the hardware 3.0, I'll quickly say, Tesla never said we're abandoning hardware 3 cars, they're obsolete, any of that. They've always said we're committed. I think obviously their priority is to get autonomy working, period, right? It's not working on the AI4 cars either. So they're going to get it working there, and then they're going to ship the FSD 14 Lite in 2026. And I wouldn't be surprised as they're designing these AI5 boards if they develop some type of upgrade that could fit into the power profile of hardware 3 and make for an easy upgrade. They've done computer swaps like that before. So I think there's a lot of good improvements coming for hardware 3 cars in the future, not just in the US, but in international markets as well. And, the software they have now is actually pretty good. It's certainly better than any other car on the market. In terms of licensing, I think it's interesting that they haven't been able to reach a deal. It's not that surprising to me. I liked that we got some color into why the deals haven't been struck. They mentioned low volume. It makes sense to me that Legacy Auto, if they were interested in licensing FSD, would say, hey, let's do a small pilot, maybe, one vehicle program, maybe one trim or one package on that vehicle program. And, it's probably going to take 3 to 5 years to get that into production. That's, pretty standard for them. But when you think about Tesla and the time and commitment they're going to have to put into making sure the software works and it's safe on this new vehicle form factor, it is kind of a waste of time if it's not a high volume vehicle, right? So I think they want Legacy Auto to make a bigger commitment than they seem to be willing to make. Another point that someone else on the team brought up is over the air updates. In a lot of these cases, the legacy automakers didn't have a good way to get over the air updates to the car, meaning the cars didn't have Wi-Fi or cellular. Or if they did, you don't have an architecture where you can update, for example, the brakes and the steering wheel and different components across the car. But ultimately, I think it falls on Tesla to create a product that is a product that
that Legacy Auto wants to bring into their supply base, right? I think the potential is huge. They could potentially be generating more earnings from FSD licensing than from their own auto business, I think, if they do it right. And I hope they spend the time to invest in that as a business. I think we're still kind of early. The general public isn't really asking for this yet. You're not necessarily seeing it reflected in even Tesla sales, let alone to the point where, legacy automakers are losing sales over it. As that starts to happen, I think you are going to see a lot more demand for licensing. But right now, it sounds like they just kind of can't make a deal. Someone mentioned NVIDIA, and NVIDIA's selling computers, and they've got some SDKs, but they certainly don't have a full product where you can just go buy NVIDIA's solution and put it in your car, and it's going to be able to drive you from point A to point B like FSD does. So, I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe Tesla could develop a solution that worked on those NVIDIA computers, and then those automakers that are using it could just sort of run the software on that. I don't know if that would make sense for them. It would obviously be a major change, so probably not. They want everyone to be using those FSD computers. But yeah, I hope they'll put some people in charge of sort of developing licensing as a business, make it easy, try and talk to these automakers, try and understand what they need. If I were Tesla, I would focus on the Chinese market, and I would find one of these Chinese EV startups that doesn't have a strong ADAS offering and get them to license FSD. And I think it would have an effect of, I think I would love to just see a sort of proof of concept of this licensing model to show to Wall Street, even if it's not necessarily at the scale you want, to show people the potential of the software. I mean, you look at what Comma's doing. They just unveiled the Comma 4 today, where you can just sort of retrofit it onto any car and then it starts driving. That's really kind of where we're going. I think Tesla could make something that worked like that too, where it could, in theory, be retrofitted on a car without the automaker even being involved.
Really?
But I think they just kind of have to put in the legwork to develop this and to make it fit with Legacy Auto. And there may be some hurdles there, getting them to adopt over-the-air updates and everything like that. But I think it's ultimately going to be important for the business that they get these deals done.
I politely disagree, Omar. First of all, I think the first market where there will be partnerships and where both the consumer wants it and the competitors wants it is Korea. Korea is now, after the United States and China, the third market for Tesla. And I also disagree on that Tesla should make now an effort towards Western European and American legacy auto. I think there has been enough effort. I honestly don't want Tesla to have a team concentrating on these OEMs who, for some, are running after their own solution. I mean, if you follow the German press, Bosch and BMW and Mercedes have a solution. Nobody has seen it, but if you read German press, they have it already. And for some, have just closed their eyes and hope to ignore it and hope it goes away. So I just don't think it's the mission of Tesla to bring everybody on the same train. They have tried and tried and tried again. And as you say, it takes 3 to 5 years for them to develop anything. So, I mean, can you imagine where we are in 3 to 5 years? So I honestly, I mean, if they want to do it, be it. But as a shareholder, I wouldn't be really excited about it. And the first comment is mainly directed to Korea. I think in Korea, they will find both the quantity of EVs and the collaboration they're looking for and the tech savviness of both the car producers and the clients.
I like the idea because Hyundai could challenge China because they know how big China has become all of a sudden, and then go, this is our potential way to leapfrog China, or at least equal them by partnering to get this.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Korea. They got FSD 14 just this week for the first time. They were the first country outside North America, I think, to get it. And one thing I learned about Korea, they have some of the longest commute times of any country. 1 hour and 40 minutes in the car a day is, I think, about the average there. Just the way that things are structured with their cities. So I think FSD is going to be very popular there. I think potentially some of the other Korean automakers are more forward thinking. Maybe they'll adopt it, but I do think that it actually fits into Tesla's mission. Tesla's mission is sustainable abundance. Tesla's got production capacity for about, 2 million cars a year. There's a fleet of cars around the world in the billions ultimately, and a significant number of those need to be replaced with autonomous vehicles. There's going to be all kinds of form factors that people want, more than what Tesla, I think, is going to want to produce. And I think it will be important ultimately because somebody is going to supply autonomy to all of the vehicles that are made in the world. If it's not Tesla, then someone else will come along eventually. One of the most powerful defenses, I think, on their fleet advantage that they have now would actually be to do a licensing model and even just sort of give away the hardware at cost or charge very little for it, and just sort of try and build that software advantage so their AI remains the best in the world. So I think it's something where the time just hasn't come yet. There will be a time where autonomy is catching steam, is becoming a demand driver, is becoming it's something that customers ask for to such an extent that their feet will be under fire if they're not doing anything. And I think there will be a point in time where the automakers are coming in and saying, look, whatever we need to do, we'll do it to get this integrated. But it
Are
just
there
seems like
any-
that time isn't yet.
Excuse me. Are there any American or Western European manufacturers of phones? I mean, I'm not talking about Apple, but I mean, really
Yeah.
developments. Exactly. And I think that's where we will end up with the car market.
What do you mean? There's plenty of American.
Well, who manufactures a US phone?
Motorola.
They manufacture it in the US?
Oh, they have, but
Yeah, exactly. But they're not anymore. And in Europe?
Yeah.
there are contract manufacturers manufacturing in parts of Hungary and so forth, but it's not widespread. Yeah.
Exactly. So but the Nokias and the Motorola's, and that's just the end of it. And so I do believe we'll end up, and in Europe you actually can see it already. We'll see with loads of Korean and Chinese cars, and I mean they're trying to sell American cars there as well. And we'll see how far the tariffs will protect America, but it's Central America, South America, that's already the case. So hoping that Tesla will be the one saving these OEMs from themselves, be my guest. I'm just not for it anymore. I'm so fed up looking at how old-fashioned their thinking is and how they're just looking 2 or 3 months ahead and not even 2 or 3 years ahead.
If I can just add one point here, I think perhaps this is how the conversation went, let's say between Elon and Jim Farley at Ford. So Elon goes, do you want to license FSD? Jim Farley says, yeah, I'm interested. What's your current take rate? Elon says 12%. So it could be that Jim Farley is sort of right in that, if your own customers, the end users, which are kind of like licensees in a way, if they're not interested in FSD, why should I go through all this hard work to get 12% of an adoption rate? So obviously that rate is going to be, growing kind of explosively, as the FSD, gets a lot better with 14.2. But I think perhaps that could be why they were hesitant.
I actually don't. I understand your point. I think it's interesting. That's not, to me, how that conversation would go. The take rate, the price people are willing to pay, it drives supply and demand of anything. So I believe Tesla actually kept the price high and exclusive because they knew what end state, they knew the level of goodness of what they had out there, and they didn't. There's no reason to proliferate it widely when it's got an intervention rate of X, which is much higher than where we are right now. So when these guys are having this conversation, they're thinking 2 to 3 years ahead. And if you're Tesla, you have to say, well, this is where I'm going to be in terms of performance, speed, value, and so forth. And then they have to decide, in 2025, if they believe that they're going to hit that kind of capability in 2028, then they just have to make a decision and go. These same decisions are made for reserving capacity, for silicon production, for a number of different things. This is extremely complex as well. But I don't think Tesla needs to give anything away. If you're making the best FSD computer and nobody can make it in terms of, tokens out per watt, for whatever efficiency metric you want to use, if they have the best available computer out there, there's no reason to give anything away.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't do any of that. And then in terms of manufacturing, I'll say, this could be a whole different show. Like auto manufacturing and smartphone manufacturing are really, really different in just how they're done and how the supply chains were originally set up. And auto supply chains have been set up localized forever, like since their inception. And then just in the last couple of decades, has there been this globalization with China entering the World Trade Organization and then the USMCA and so forth. But and that's caused some instability in our auto job market in the U.S. But there's still 3 million plus jobs in the U.S. that are connected to the auto industry. So it's going to have a nonlinear presence. It's not going to go. I don't believe it's going to go the way of smartphone. Remember when mobile phone production was in the U.S., I was in a factory building them, even before we brought it back in 2012 briefly, when it was just here, when we were just making dumb phones, flip phones and so forth. The volumes weren't that high because the networks weren't built out, and the costs were too high for the technology. So it's just a completely different time. But we definitely had manufacturing here. But I think the point is where this is going is I believe there's going to be significant change in the landscape of who is making vehicles and who makes them profitably and where the profit comes from. And if I'm BMW or I'm Mercedes and I'm only making $5,000, $8,000 a vehicle, and here Tesla comes in and they could license maybe $2,000 on some vehicles, maybe nothing on some vehicles is what they're making in hardware margin. And here Tesla comes in with a pure model of like, here, you can buy our solution from us. And Tesla could be making $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 and also make a recurring revenue and recurring margins on my product. It's like it's deadly for them. So this is a tough spot. You could see, like I said, just a significant reduction in the number of OEMs.
Yep, and deservedly so. I watched this market now for the last 5 years. I've never seen anything so suicidal. And I've told this story a lot of times. My brother is 1 year younger than me. He's very, very implicated with the German car industry. We're on a very high level. We're hardly talking anymore because he's so pissed off with Tesla and my involvement in it. But that's beyond the point. When I see the way they react to it all, they dismiss it. They are above it. there are, I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. It is crazy. And they don't want to listen. They don't want to look at it. It's for them, it's Silicon Valley craziness. This doesn't come to German streets. This doesn't come to European roads. And I mean, they have a point. They're having the regulators, they're lobbying a lot. They have the regulators in their pocket at the moment. It's delayed and delayed and delayed again. Don't think that is a pure coincidence, but it will come. It will come with the statistics on safety. It will come. And the day they will lose that business, and it will not be overnight. It may, they're all thinking, by then I'm retired, and maybe yes and maybe no.
Exactly.
But it's such a selfish short-sightedness. And you're completely right, Jeff. In the automobile industry, Volkswagen alone has 40,000 suppliers, many of whom are just around Wolfsburg, where their main hub is. But then it goes everywhere. Remember when Ukraine stopped delivering, I don't know which screw it was, and then everything had to stop. So it is a worldwide supply chain now, but it is still also, you're right, Jeff, a local supply chain, and it's thousands and tens of thousands of jobs, and we will just see it melt down. And it's their responsibility in those boardrooms, those decisions that weren't taken. If you read the story of Herbert Diess, how he was ousted from Volkswagen, he was the one who saw it. He built a relationship with Elon. Same for Stellantis, and then they don't go anywhere because they can't afford it, or they can't get themselves to make the important step. I'm sorry, I feel really like, I've had it saving them and playing the white knight. I mean, there's only so much Tesla can take on to change the world, and Tesla will change the world, but not by saving them all the time.
No.
Jeff, are you saying that auto execs, legacy auto execs are not aggressively going after inference computers and chips in the planning of their new vehicles? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think I said that. But I just said don't think that they won't blow themselves up. Like they'll just make a series of bad decisions and blow themselves up, because it will happen.
Yeah, this is so well said, all of you so far. It's basically the legacy versus disruptive innovation all over again, right? It's like dumb phones, smartphones. Oh no, people really do want physical keyboards. Right now they're saying, no, people want to drive. This is not going to happen. So Tesla launched their robotaxi 5 months ago in June 22nd. So we have some analysts, remember Alexandra, our favorite analyst, Gary Black, saying that in 3 to 6 months, everybody will be able to copy, all the automakers will just copy the software that Tesla has created. And he just said recently that Waymo will launch and license everybody too. Well, let's count down how long that takes. Now, 4 months ago in August, the ex-CEO of Waymo, John Krachik, he came out and said, oh, tell me, wake me up when Tesla actually does launch a robotaxi, because they still have a person in the car. Let me know when Tesla really does launch a robotaxi. Omar, you kind of jokingly said, okay, well, we'll let you know, but you let me know when I can buy a Waymo, because you can buy a Tesla now. Wouldn't wonder which will happen first. Elon replied to you at that time, and he said, they will switch from claiming that Tesla self-driving is fake to Tesla self-driving is unfairly good. And basically, he's already knew at that point that it's like they just keep saying, no, it's not coming, it's not coming, it's not coming, it's fake, it doesn't work. And then all of a sudden, oh, shit, it's here. Oh, it's unfair. How come they're doing this and they're monopolistic? And he's already projecting that is just the way legacy behaves.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. There's interesting calculus that could be going on right now. Don't take the deal, don't take a deal, and then all of a sudden somehow it's regulated, and it's regulated in a way where maybe they get access to it more cheaply. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to try to go through all the game theory. Just remember, these things will be non-linear. It's not like like an auto company will start, having lower sales and then warn and then go out of business right away. There'll be a bailout. There'll be all kinds of things happening. But the things to watch for the dealers and watch for the noise at the dealership because they'll start getting squeezed. And then watch the tier 2 suppliers. They're typically lower capitalized suppliers. And when you start seeing that, these are suppliers that supply GM supplier, like, the direct GM to factory suppliers. When they start, you start seeing bankruptcies and issues there, that's a fairly telling canary in the coal mine. That same thing was happening with BYD and their suppliers. The lower capitalized suppliers that they were getting circular financing from, those are the ones that started really having a problem. And CCP noticed this and said, "Hey, look, we've got to change what we're doing here. We have too many models, too much supply, too much pricing competition, and we're basically going to burn ourselves out and cause a huge issue." But just watch the tier 2 suppliers, because that's and then finally too, just when people talk about, like, they try to sound smart in a conversation and talk about, level 2 this, and that car's a level 4 and that's a level 3. Okay, those are automation standards. You can go online, you can Google, you can look them up, and you can read them. And we have several standards to make any kind of commercial product and ship it. But at the end of the day, it's the way consumers value product. It's not a robotic or an ANSI standard that's written on the product. It's what can they do with the product and how does it change their lives. So the very simple response in that conversation is, where do I go find that car and test drive it? And can I type in an address and will it drive me to that address? Because today you can go into any Tesla showroom and test drive a car. You can punch in any address in North America, and if you have the car for however many days, it would drive you to it. And there's no other example of that right now. Until there's an example of that, there really isn't any meaningful competition for these OEMs to say, well, we've got something that's under wraps and we're gonna product evolution of this type that's so close to the consumer. It doesn't happen in back rooms and in undercover. It's got to be out there. People have to be trying it, experiencing it, and they have to get large swaths of data and consumer feedback. So, but that, to me, that's a simple answer to the SAE level conversation: is just where's that car? Where can I buy it? And can I go test drive it?
Yeah. So texting and driving, right? It's like that's one of the features. I think that is dead on. When the Tesla says you can text and drive, that is the key feature that people will realize. Yeah, that's what I care about. Not whether it's level 4, level 3, level 2. It's like, well, I can text. That's the key.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to do that, but we'll see if they actually say that. But if you're driving 14.2, you've seen it's meaningfully relaxed.
Yeah, no, that's I've been seeing videos today with 14.2 where people are actually able to put up the phone in front of their face, text away, and it's not going to nag them. As it takes them a little bit longer before the nag comes in place. So it's almost there.
Yeah.
Is that neg a NHTSA requirement or more self-imposed by Tesla?
What do you think, Yoda? I think it's self-imposed. But what do you think? If it was NHTSA,
think,
they wouldn't be saying, "Oh, you have to have a 30-second nag." They're not going to do that. They're going to say, "No, you cannot do it."
Yeah, that's true. I guess if we know that texting though, it's still illegal.
The third 30% of all deaths last year was because of texting.
Yeah. I don't know. Curious what others think.
Yeah, I think it's what Elon said, right? They're going to slowly reduce the nag, and that's how they're going to get to eventually be able to say.
No, but I think there is a requirement for driver monitoring or attention monitoring. I have to look up what standard it is, because when they were going between the steering wheel nag and then the camera only, there was an issue I remember NHTSA was involved. So I think there is, but like I said, there's boundaries with all of these things, and I think Tesla's been actually fairly responsible with with what they're doing, how they're approaching it.
Yeah,
So-
You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct, Jeff. It was imposed by NHTSA in December 23. I just went to Grok. For anything that is level 2 and up. And when they did that recall, which was only an over-the-air update, they imposed that, and then it came, with lowering those standards. But it started off as being the NHTSA safety nag.
Jeff, I was going to ask you, like Tesla today is producing 1.8 to 2 million autonomous cars. Every car they make is FSD capable. And then of course they're going to create the Cybercabs. Waymo is only making, they're actually not even making, they're upfitting 2,500, 3,000 cars. What is the value that Tesla's actually already has? It's like 7 million cars out there, but then also 2.2 million per year that's their run rate today of making robotaxi ready cars. Is there, I know that more cars means more data, and that's how data created FSD to be so good. But is there any other additional value that, this manufacturer Tesla is able to make, is already making 2 million, and it can increase that volume? You know how volume obviously reduces as cost. I'm sure the chips prices could go down, but I'm not sure that it's significant enough to really make a dent, to make a real difference. What do you think?
What's the question? Are you talking about the difference between how Tesla makes a self-driving car and how others?
No, well, Tesla has a major lead in terms of the volume of self-driving cars that they're making. And the volume, you're very good at explaining how volume, of course, reduces price for a lot of things. But what is there another value? The fact that Tesla's already at 2 million per year run rate of driverless cars.
Well, yeah, the landed cost. So from the factory to its final point and destination, there's a cost in that, and there's a tariff. There's typically a tariff involved, and there's the physical cost of movement of the product, and then there's just the underlying. Part of the logistics cost is the transformation and bill of material costs of what you're transferring. So to have a very high cost vehicle with a lot of sensors, and then say I've got to transport this to this point in the world, or I've got to set up low volume manufacturing, all those things are just huge drains on costs. And some of these companies have they could have a 10-year. Some of these companies are very cash rich, but not a lot of them. And it just depends if it's something they want to strategically invest in. What you've seen more autonomous companies going out of business than I think that are started in the last couple of years, because if you don't get the volume, you don't have a product, and you don't get the volume, it eventually just kills you. So yeah, so the first principles way is, it's part of the original production of producing the product. It's as automated as possible. It's in process quality validation. It's in, like, the camera calibration. All this stuff is in process, and it's done while it's going through the factory, and it's driving out of the factory. It's driving itself, and it's calibrating. It's doing self-test, and it's verifying. That is first principles manufacturing, lowest cost, total lowest landed cost of doing these things. And of course, you have to start with the core, the center of the whole thing, which is the chip, and designing that it's yourself, making it as power efficient as possible, and then not having to pay yourself a margin because you made it, like you designed it. And so all you're paying the margin to is you're paying the margin to TSMC or Samsung to fab it, which isn't as high as what NVIDIA charges for their inference or their training, which could be over 70%. So yeah, there's a huge differential, but each company's approaching it differently. Not everybody's using NVIDIA, or they're using some mix of NVIDIA for training, or they're using their own inference, like in the case of what Google is doing. Sorry, what Alphabet's doing. So they're all a bit different. But I think these things just need to ship, and they need to ship in volume. And then I think there'll be a lot more conversation around unfortunately, that's how Wall Street is. Maybe they'll have more of a conversation around the business model.
Yeah. Within 3 years, imagine where Tesla's going to be at that point. So even if Waymo's technology does work, even if they're able to license their tech to every car manufacturer, in 3 years, they're just starting to produce. Some car manufacturers will be starting to produce if they start today. And at that point, Tesla's FSD is, version 45, super intelligent AGI level at that point. Their AI 20 was going to be so small and so efficient, performance, cost, everything.
Yeah, well, if you look at what Tesla's done, is they've had to hedge themselves everywhere. They had to do their own chip, or the economics probably wouldn't have worked, or they wouldn't have gotten a computer that met their specs and requirements, and they would be somebody in the queue of an NVIDIA or Mobileye or what have you. So they had to do their own chip. They've had to go out and do their own charging network. They've had to go out and do their own insurance. I think they've taken out a lot of hedges along the way to make this a reality, and just stay focused on the fact that there's a transformation in vehicle ownership. There's a reason that there's 21 million cars sold at a $38,000 average selling price in 2017. And that was the peak in the US for auto manufacturing. And now it's $50,000 for a car. And the volumes are 15 million a year, maybe 15 to 16 million a year. That's a dramatic reduction. So it's going to change regardless. The ownership model of vehicles are going to change regardless, and I think Tesla is going to lead what that looks like. And they'll have vehicles you can buy, they'll have a rental model, and they'll have a robo-taxi model, and you'll have the choice of how you want to use transportation.
Yeah, a very good leasing model. And I guess that might be another reason why the OEMs are just not, if they think this through and they go forward, and it's a business model has completely changed, and they might not be able to move to this super low all-in cost leasing model.
Yeah, like I said, I just be careful. I don't think the European government, and I'm sure the U.S. government, they're not going to let automakers fail. Now, it may be ugly and it may be messy along the way, and this is part of the reason they have single digit or low double digit PEs. But don't think that it's just like that their volumes are going to drop off, and there's not going to be some parachute that comes in and says, "Oh, well, we've had a problem with the consumer," or China's doing illegal dumping of something somewhere, or there'll be just some excuse. Like, again, all the excuses, all the money that was helicoptered in for EV. I did the math; it was like $26 billion in loans and grants that were given to everybody except Tesla. And I'm not saying Tesla didn't earn other, obviously other credits and other systems that have been set up around the world, but don't think that this is going to go in a linear manner where they sell less cars, they make less money, and they just go out of business. It'll be long and drawn out, in my opinion.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Thanksgiving. Probably going to switch to Merry Christmas in a few days. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it all. We'll see you again next week.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.